Since the reintroduction of PlayStation Plus in 2022, we've had a steady stream of more classic titles being added to the service. This is under the Classics catalog in the Premium section or the Deluxe section, depending on where you are in the world. In South Africa, we call it the Deluxe section, and this sees PSP games, PS2 games, PS1 games, and some PS3 remasters of games being added to the service. And in addition to being added to the service, if you do not want to subscribe to that higher level of a service, you're not locked out of these games entirely. You actually have the opportunity to purchase these games. Now, with that came something a little bit more interesting than just outright purchasing them. Obviously, some of them had been given trophy support, which was not available previously. When we bought PS1 games or PSP games or even PS2 games on PlayStation 3 and stuff like that, you didn't have trophy support. There was no obligation to have trophy support. There isn't any obligation now to have trophy support. But what is interesting is if you go into perhaps, say, the PS Vita storefront and go into the PS1 or most of the PS1 or PSP sections, there are some games that actually cross over that have been added from those storefronts into the PlayStation Plus catalog and available to us to purchase digitally, of course. And what I did find interesting, and I don't know if enough people are speaking about this, is if you had already bought these titles on the PS Vita or PS3, you are actually entitled to claim those games, which means some of those games that you might have owned digitally, the PS1, PSP, or PS2, or maybe even the PS3 remasters, but that kind of doesn't really apply to us here in South Africa. That's more the PS3 streaming, but I digress. I don't know if that counts. That I am unsure of. Again, I digress. What happens is you actually get given these titles if you purchase them on these older storefronts, or if you had purchased them on the older storefronts. So this was really interesting to me. So a couple of weeks ago, I went onto the PSP storefront, or PS Vita storefront, I should say, sorry, and took down a list of the PSP games and PS1 games that cross over between the PlayStation Plus service, so those that have been added to PlayStation Plus service and the PlayStation Store on modern systems like the PS5 and the PS Vita system. I then also, because I like trophies, cross-reference those that have been added to trophy lists that are now supported, or those that now have trophy lists. So I came up with a list of one PS1 game that is available on the PS Vita that cross-references or crosses over to PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4. And 7 PSP games that are now on PS5, but I could have purchased on PS Vita. Now, I currently don't have PlayStation Plus. I am trying to go as physical as possible. Obviously, for this experiment, that's not possible, but you will have to forgive me. I was just very curious. So what I did is I loaded in 150 Rand into my PlayStation wallet, and I purchased one of these games. I went through a whole bunch of them. I'll list them off for you now. There's Medieval Resurrection, Ape Academy, Echo Shift, Jak and Daxter: The Lost Frontier, Loco Roco 1 and 2, and Resistance Retribution. Now, the one PS1 game is Oddworld's Abe's Odyssey. Don't know why that's so difficult to say. But after going through all these games and going through seeing which ones had trophy lists and which ones were the easiest and which ones I was keen to play, I landed on purchasing one. And you can actually see it on the screen now. So if we go over, I bought Medieval Resurrection, but I didn't buy it on PlayStation 5. So after I loaded the funds into the PlayStation wallet, I was able to purchase it on the PS Vita. Now, not only does this entitle me to the version on the PS Vita, but it also entitled me to the version on the PS4 and PS5. Whereas if I had bought it on the PlayStation 5, I wouldn't have been entitled to it backwards. So I wouldn't have been entitled to it on the PS Vita. Even more interestingly, I actually think I saved money by doing this. Now, I'm not saying this is the good way to do this. I'm not saying everyone should go out and buy a PS Vita or PS3 just to do this. But I just wanted to highlight that this is something that is possible, and something that where if you do have digital libraries of these games on these systems, you could be entitled to a good few games. And if you're a trophy hunter, you could even receive more options for your trophy hunting, because you will have these games in your backlog or in your library that you may have played without trophy support back in the day that now do have trophy support. And if you go onto something like PSN Profiles, you can see that quite a few of these games aren't too difficult. Medieval Resurrection is like a 2 out of 10. I think I have it written down here. A 2 out of 10. Jak and Daxter: The Lost Frontier is a 3 out of 10. Okay, Loco Roco and Loco Roco 2 are they're difficult for some reason. They are 8 and 6 out of 10s. So I won't be trying those. I didn't do Abe's Odyssey. I don't think Abe's Odyssey on PS1 and the PS1 version of the game on PS5 has trophy support. I think that's why I left it out, and it wasn't one that I could have wanted to purchase. But the interesting fact still stands that sometimes you can purchase these games for cheaper and have it entitled to you for more systems than just one. And I found that really, really cool because I can now play on the Vita without trophy support, which does kind of suck, but I can also then go play that game on the PS5. But what do the games look like? What do they compare? Here's where it gets really interesting, because it's not exactly the same version on the PS Vita that is now on the PS5. Obviously, they can't just do that. This needs to be running on more modern hardware. It needs to look a little bit more visually pleasing. And I do have to say that they do quite a good job of showing that there is some visual improvement. I notice it mostly in the menus, but what does help when playing on the PS Vita is because it's such a small screen, and Medieval Resurrection, sorry, I keep thinking of Resistance Retribution, but Medieval Resurrection is a PlayStation portable game, so a PSP game. So when you play it on a smaller screen, it actually looks more at home. But the visual updates, the trophies, and all of that does make it quite a good purchase and quite a good play on PlayStation 5. So with the PlayStation 5 version, you can obviously have controller remapping. You have the rewind function, which is really cool. So even if you don't have PlayStation Plus, you still have access to that rewind function. So you can rewind back, I don't know, however many seconds if you mess up a part of a game, which makes trophy hunting a lot easier, trust me. I think that's why a lot of people did Ape Escape and Siphon Filter right at the beginning when those games came out onto PlayStation Plus. But yeah, it does make trophy hunting a little bit easier. Clearly not for Loco Roco or Loco Roco 2, but we don't have to talk about those. But let me know, are there any games that you think you would want to pick up this way, or any games that you still want added to this PlayStation Plus lineup so we can play them on PS5? I think Secret Agent Clank has been confirmed now. That's going to be coming. I don't think Ratchet and Clank Size Matters has been confirmed yet, or if they're doing that, I can't quite remember. But these are all games that are still actually available on the PS Vita that you could still do that with. The only big, obvious admission or something that still hasn't been added is the PS Vita games. Now, I know this is very difficult to do because we have the back touch screen and the front touch screen, and there have been some games that have been redone and optimized for that. I can think of Tearaway for one. Tearaway, by all intents and purposes, should have stayed on the PS Vita because of how it uses the back touchpad, but they managed to do it and managed to get it working perfectly on the PlayStation 4. And then on top of that, they also did Gravity Rush. Gravity Rush also made use of PS Vita features, but there are still some games that we are really, really missing out on that still haven't been ported over or even thought of being put onto like a PlayStation Plus. I know PS Vita games aren't part of the PlayStation Plus catalog unless you're counting Gravity Rush remastered, but that's more of a PS4 game than it is a PS Vita game. But I'm thinking about like Uncharted Golden Abyss. This is a game that is stuck on the Vita, and while I love the Vita, I do think that a lot more people would like to experience that game or games like it that are stuck on the PS Vita. Yeah, I think it is a situation where we are kind of caught in a catch-22. But for me, what we have done today with Medieval Resurrection, buying it on the PS Vita and then playing it on the PlayStation 5, that's really cool. And I like to see that Sony honors the digital purchases from the past in the future. And if you really wanted to, you could go do what I did and load up wallet funds and purchase these games on your Vita or PS3 and then have more carry over. Now, speaking about a PS3, we might have some interesting news coming up soon. I don't want to jinx anything. I don't want to say anything yet. But maybe one day in the distant future when we have a PS3, we will be able to go into those storefronts, and maybe we'll have access to even more games. The Vita storefront is very limited in terms of PSP and PS1 games, but I think the PS3 one might still be decently supported. It just depends on where you are in the world, and I think in South Africa we're probably always the first to be let go with things like that. If you do want to do this and you are in South Africa, I recommend purchasing your wallet cards off of some place like Kudu, or if you go to Pick and Pay or ShopRite or stuff like that and buy the PlayStation vouchers. It's just a way of supporting local still, which is always lacquer, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I think you guys should definitely check this out if it's games that you are really interested in still seeing. Let me know which games you want to see coming to PlayStation Plus. There's still so many that I want to see ported over. I want to see the Ratchet and Clank trilogy so badly. The rest of the Sly Cooper games would be great, but I think I'd rather play those on the PlayStation 3 collection or something like that. I want those physical as well. But I digress. I hope that you guys are enjoying your weekend and your Friday, and that you will be playing as many games as possible, and hopefully you hitting some of the classics as well. I'm enjoying Medieval Resurrection, and I'm going to be hopping back into it because we have recently finished Astrobot, and Astrobot is fantastic. If you haven't played it and haven't done everything the game has to offer yet, make sure you do so because it is genuinely Game of the Year worthy. Other than that, please enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll check you next week.